Hello, and welcome to the Gay Cruise and Travel Podcast with me, Just Joey T. Brought to you by JustJoeyTravels, which is my travel advisory business. I am a professional travel advisor now. Just want to very quickly talk about that before we jump into the headline topic for the episode. Thank you to everyone who's reached out to me to try to book an Atlantis cruise. Now, obviously, to know that some of you are already reaching out to me, it's so great to hear. And I know some of you have asked me, a couple of you have tried to reach out to me to try to book the 2 Mediterranean European cruises that Atlantis is going to put on for next summer in 2026. You know, if you go onto some of the Facebook groups, some of the forums, you'll see that quite a lot of people are talking about it, especially those who are Atlantis alumni, because alumni get early access to upcoming Atlantis cruises that have not yet been released to the public. The thing about me being a registered travel agent with Atlantis is that there are certain guidelines I have to adhere to, and some of that concerns the release or the announcements of certain cruises that are coming up. Wink, wink, wink. Therefore, I am not able to talk about certain cruises that Atlantis has not yet put on public sale while they're giving first dibs of those to their alumni. Wink, wink, wink. But let me put it this way. Not specific to any upcoming Atlantis cruise, but as soon as any upcoming Atlantis cruise goes on public sale, I will always do an episode of the podcast about it. And it will go up as soon as it is actually truly released to the public. Let's put it that way, regardless of what dates or timelines may have been promised or published in some website or some email. Okay, I'll leave it at that. I don't want to get in trouble with Atlantis. But today, this is the only podcast episode I've ever recorded that I wish would go out of date immediately. And maybe it will, maybe it won't. I thought I wouldn't need to record this episode, to be really honest. But, well, here we are. So I'm going to give you all a brief update as to the current status of air travel in the U.S. due to the record-breaking government shutdown. It's the longest federal government shutdown in U.S. history. We're like 40-ish days. I'm starting to lose count, to be really honest. I'll just tell you a little bit about, how the shutdown has affected air travel, just in case you don't keep up too much with the news. But I'm going to focus on if you want or already have travel plans coming up, in the coming days, just in case this shutdown drags on for much longer. I want to give everybody some tips and advice on how to best prepare yourself for those upcoming travels, obviously, especially if they involve any sort of air travel. So let's just take a quick status update on the current effects of air travel because of the shutdown. Air traffic control staffing obviously has been in the news headlines for a lot. The staffing is getting worse every single day, and the knock-on effects are flight cancellations and flight delays. So as of Friday, the FAA has mandated what I call the 4 at 40 cancellations. That's just my personal kind of shorthand term of referring to what they're mandating, which is a 4% flight reduction at 40 major U.S. airports. The percentage of the flight reductions could go up in the upcoming days if the shutdown keeps continuing, as announced by the FAA in more than one of their press conferences. So how many flights are actually affected? Like this 4% mandate. What does that actually translate to in actual numbers? So I looked this up quickly. On Friday, 1,000 flights were canceled, and these are flights into, within, or out of the US. But most of the flights that are affected are domestic US flights, kind of within the US. 1,000 flights canceled Friday, 1,500 canceled Saturday, and 1,500 already canceled today. And it's Sunday morning. It's coming up to 11 a.m. on the West Coast as I'm recording this. Already 1,500 flights canceled for today. There'll probably be possibly a few more cancellations as we go over the rest of the day. 750 already canceled for tomorrow, which is Monday, November the 10th. So cancellations are one thing. We also have a lot of delays, and the delays have been slowly piling up, but the delays are as bad as it's ever been this long into the shutdown. So it's Sunday morning, and already the New York area is getting hit pretty hard, in addition to the Chicago area at ORD. For example, to use Newark Airport as an example, one of the 3 major airports in the New York City area, currently the flights are delayed an average of over 2 hours, and delays max out at around 4.5 hours. Delays are very dynamic things. They can change minute to minute, hour to hour. But that's the latest. Just give you an example of how bad some of the cancellations and delays are currently. Over 7,000 flights have been delayed every day on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday over the last 3 days. So let's jump off the gloom and doom numbers and into some tips and advice. Now, I've kind of broken this down into a few categories. If you're already in the middle of a trip, you've started your travels, okay? I hope you're not listening to this in an airport that you're hanging out in because your flight is super delayed. If you're already mid-trip, there's not a ton that you can do. Hope isn't a strategy, as I've been told many times in school and in various jobs that I have had, especially earlier in my career. But, some of the tips I'm going to go through, if you are already taking a flight somewhere to some sort of destination for your trip, and you're going to be flying home soon, or you might be out of the US right now, you're coming back into the US. So hopefully some of the upcoming tips around being at the airport and checking flight status and things like that are going to be helpful. But I think most of the tips and advice I have are going to be more useful for the people that haven't started to travel yet. So in particular, if you are looking to travel in the upcoming days, over like the next 1 or 2 days, over the next week, maybe even a couple of weeks, hopefully it doesn't go that long and Thanksgiving doesn't become a complete cluster. We just don't know right now. I didn't even think we'd be sitting here right now at 40 days, to be honest. So anyways, if you are thinking about booking a flight in the upcoming days, maybe upcoming 1 or 2 weeks, if there's an alternative way for you to get to your destination, is driving viable? Is taking the train viable? Just explore some of those alternative options. Obviously, sometimes you can't drive or take a train. If it's like heavy winter weather, driving is not particularly great or safe, to be honest. If you do want to book a flight, book some airfare, I strongly recommend booking a refundable fare if you can, okay? So when you usually go onto an airline's website, and they usually have a number of different types of fares you can book. Basic economy is one of them, and it's usually the cheapest, but usually those are the ones that have the most restrictions in terms of changes and cancellations and refunds. In the current situation, I don't recommend you try to save a few dollars by booking a basic or a non-refundable airfare type. Also, at the same time, do you have to take this trip? Just before I get into like all the tips about booking airfare, do you have to take this trip? Is it a trip that can be delayed? Obviously, there are people that need to get to certain places, a family event, a wedding, some work trip. I mean, even honestly, some work trips can be delayed. Like all the corporate jobs I've had, if there's actually most of the work trips I've ever taken in my like 15 plus years in the corporate 9-to-5 world, probably most of those trips didn't have to happen on those exact days. They probably could have been moved. Some of them can't when you're gathering a large number of people from all over to meet in one place for like a conference or a whatever. I get it. But think about, do you really have to take that trip? If you don't, could it wait? try it another time. Assuming you do need to book some airfare to go somewhere, I've got a bunch of tips here, okay? Besides booking booking a refundable fare, don't book the non-refundable types. Try to go nonstop. Try not to have to connect somewhere. Connecting is, within the US, connecting is particularly dangerous right now. You know, your first flight in your itinerary could go off without a hitch, and then you get to another airport with a very different situation possibly, and your second flight might get canceled, you know, while you're in the air on your first leg. So things are just a little too unpredictable right now. So if you are able to book a nonstop, and that might mean looking at airlines you might not usually fly. Maybe you're used to flying United, you're used to flying Southwest, you're used to flying JetBlue, whatever it is, go on Google Flights, look at all your flight options. Even if it's an airline you don't like that much in particular, or you usually prefer not to fly, if another airline has a direct flight to your ultimate destination, that's going to be a much better bet for you right now. Connecting, even at the best of times, I mean, it was like in August. I went somewhere in August or September, and it was a connecting flight, and something happened with the connection. And it wasn't, this is well before the government shut down. Like, just in these current exceptional times, do everything you can to book a nonstop flight if you're able to. And if you're looking at, let's say you're trying to go from one city to another, and there doesn't seem to be any nonstop flights between like the obvious major airports in those two places. Also look at some of the secondary airports in the area you're flying to. Maybe you can't find a direct flight from where you are to San Francisco Airport, San Francisco International, SFO. But in the San Francisco area, there are other airports as well. There's San Jose Airport, SJC, and there's also Oakland International, which OAK. And those are all within that kind of Bay Area in San Francisco. I used to live in the Bay Area, I know. So when you're looking at flights, also, you might want to expand your search to just beyond the obvious airport that's in that area, like LAX in Los Angeles. There are other airports here. There's Burbank Airport. There's Long Beach Airport. Look at some of these other airports, but you might find a direct flight to one of those that you're not going to find from wherever you are to like the obvious LAX or SFO or whatever obvious airport you may be looking at. Okay, so avoid checking luggage. Now, not everyone's going to be able to do this. I appreciate that a lot of people need to bring stuff with them. I travel so much, and I travel to Asia for trips that are like 7 or 10 days at a time. I haven't packed any checked luggage for any of my flights for like 3 years. I swear to God, I have not checked any luggage for any trip I've taken in at least 3 years. The last time I checked luggage, it was because I had to bring a bunch of outfits for a Atlantis cruise that I was volunteering to work on for Team Atlantis. And when you work for Team Atlantis, when you wear the Atlantis badge, you have to, wear, basically we had, different attire that we had to dress to. Every day had a different attire for all of the Atlantis crew on each of the cruises. Daytime, nighttime, there's a difference as well. And every day is different. So I basically had to pack a second wardrobe just for the times when I was on shift, whenever I volunteered to work for Team Atlantis on one of their cruises. And I basically had to bring a complete separate duffel bag just of basically work clothes. And, I had to check that because it was just like too much clothes that I have to bring. So that was the last time that I had to check luggage for any sort of a flight. I've been to Asia. I go to Asia all the time, like several times a year, and I'll go for at least a week, if not like 9 or 10 days. And it's literally my backpack, which isn't even full. And I have a carry-on size suitcase. That's it. It is a bit of a skill to travel that light. But if you are able to just, again, during these exceptional times, especially if you're connecting, because don't assume that your checked luggage is going to follow you on the same plane that you're going to have a seat on, because it's actually surprisingly easy when there are flight disruptions and cancellations and delays and stuff for your checked luggage to get somewhere where you're not. And that is just an extra headache you might not want to have. especially if you're connected. If you're taking a direct flight, I think you're probably okay to check luggage. But if you have to connect just because of where you're flying from or where you're trying to ultimately get to, sometimes they're not direct flights to every single place, okay? I get that. So if you're connecting, if you're able to, at least this one time, just travel a little lighter, just try to see if you can do without the checked luggage. If you have to check luggage, just maybe try to keep more of your essentials in your carry-ons and try not to pack anything expensive or essential in the checked luggage. Extra clothes can go into the checked luggage, but, things that are like, obviously, this is something you should do all the time anyways. Anything that's like toiletries, your basic essential toiletries, all of your medication, anything valuable, your wallet, cash, all that stuff should always be in your carry-on anyways. Read up on the travel waivers and refund policies for the airline you've chosen. A lot of airlines do currently have travel waivers on because of the current shutdown situation. But a lot of those only apply for flights that are booked between certain dates. And they only apply for travel within certain dates. So if you go book a flight today, some of those travel waivers may not cover you, but I looked through some of them. Some of the travel waivers from the airlines, they'll only cover flights booked, not today, only cover flights that are booked in history, unless you have a time machine, okay? But just in case, once you've chosen to book for a particular airline, it would just be good to know what the travel waiver situation, and those are subject to change. We're in a kind of a very dynamic situation right now. So just keep aware of any updates in the travel waivers. And again, I already said, try to book a refundable fare for your airfare and also know what the refund and cancellation policy is for your airline for the particular fare class that you have booked. I've talked about credit cards in the past on a couple of episodes. I've mentioned travel insurance a couple of times. I am working on an episode dedicated to the nitty-gritties of travel insurance. However, if you are going to go buy a ticket for a flight, do it with a credit card that offers travel protection or get some travel insurance. Most people have just a few credit cards, so it's be pretty easy for you to just open your wallet. You have 2 or 3 credit cards. Just look up and Google, okay, I have this particular type of Visa or from this bank, or like I have this Amex from this other bank, and just look up for your specific credit card what travel protections it comes with. There could be a credit card in your wallet that offers some protections and reimbursements for flight cancellations and travel delays and things like that. It already comes with a credit card. You already have that credit card. It's effectively free. You're not paying anything extra to do it. So it does make sense to be knowledgeable about which credit card you use to book your travels with, especially in a situation like this. Usually you need to put the full amount of the cost of the airfare completely onto that one credit card. Some credit cards will cover your trip if you only charge part of your travels to that card. But to be safe, usually, if you're going to go pay hundreds of dollars for airfare, just figure out which credit card in your wallet is the best option for that in terms of the travel protection, and just put the full charge onto that one credit card. If you don't have any credit cards that have any of the travel protections, just get travel insurance then. Travel insurance is pretty easy to get. If you would like, Just Joey Travels, we don't only sell cruises, we also sell travel insurance. So if you have any questions about travel insurance, you're interested in getting some travel insurance, I know I said I would do an episode about it, but if you're interested in getting travel insurance right now and you want to know whether it's going to be a good fit for you, just hit up JustJoeyTravels.com. Also on my Instagram, you can DM at JustJoeyTravels. And if for your specific situation, I can answer any travel insurance questions that you might have. I can also advise you on whether travel protection or travel insurance is going to be good for what you want and for your particular situation as well. So feel free to hit me up for that. All right. Those are all the things I think if you need to book some airfare, if you need to fly somewhere in like the upcoming days, especially if it's like something that's on short notice, there might be some sort of family emergency. Those are some of the things to keep in mind. All right. If you have a flight already booked and you're supposed to fly later today, on Monday or Tuesday in the coming days, anytime before all this shutdown mess is gone and cleared up, I've got some tips as well. So regularly check the flight status, okay? Start checking the day or like the night before, because a lot of the airlines, as much as they can, they're going to cancel the flights not at the last minute. So for example, on United's website, they're saying that they have done all the cancellations because of this government shutdown for Monday and Tuesday already. And it's currently still Sunday as I'm recording this. So the airlines, if they do need to cancel a flight, or if the FAA is forcing them to cancel an X number of flights, they're trying to do it proactively as early as possible so that the travelers that might be affected, they are not finding out at the last minute and then scrambling, or they're finding out at the airport. So check the flight status early and check it regularly. You can very easily just check the flight status, either Google it or just go to the website or the mobile app of the airline with which you've booked, and you can easily look up the flight status from there. I've talked about packing light, okay, but I just think this bears repeating. The less luggage you have to lug around during a flight delay at an airport, trust me, the better it is. Having said that, pack your phone again, pack a tablet. If you have an iPad or something like that, pack it. Load it up with games and videos and just lots of things to keep yourself entertained. Most airports have Wi-Fi, sure, but my iPad, for example, which I use almost exclusively for entertainment while I travel, if I were to watch everything that's just locally stored on my iPad, even if I didn't have Wi-Fi, it would probably take 4 or 5 days. There's like dozens, maybe like 100 hours of videos of stuff that I can watch on it. Okay, so whip out your tablet, power it on, charge it up, charge everything up. When you leave your house for the airport, everything should be like 90%, 100% charged. Okay, don't think you can find an outlet in an airport. Okay, charge everything up before you leave for the airport. Load everything up with games, videos, entertainment, what have you. Bring a USB power bank, those USB batteries. Bring some food for the airport. Just expect delays. Just expect that you're going to have to wait. Just expect that it's going to be busy at the terminal. Just expect that traffic leading into the airport is going to be a mess. Expect that there's going to be people everywhere. Expect that you're going to have to queue and line up for everything. Expect that security at the TSA is not going to be very fast. Expect delays and waits. And if there happens to be no waits and not as many delays as you think, then great. Okay? Just don't go into it with super high expectations. It's really when your expectations are far from being met that people get upset, in my opinion. It's like a nice surprise if you think it's going to take an hour to get through TSA, but only takes like 20 minutes. What a pleasant surprise. Okay? So just get yourself, not into like a negative mindset, but just understand and acknowledge that it's an exceptional time and it's not really the best time to fly in the US right now. And just go into that, there's going to be a lot of people and there's going to be delays and there's going to be flight cancellations. Okay? Bring some food, because if you do end up having to hang around the airport for like a few hours, you might want something to eat. Okay? Most airports, yes, have places where you can buy food, but do you know how much airports charge for food? Sometimes it's a little expensive. So if there's like something you can just make or throw into your carry-on luggage, like your backpack or whatever, I like to bring muffins or like cupcakes. I get these Trader Joe's cinnamon brown sugar cupcakes. I get them all the time. And I love just throwing them into a Ziploc bag, and I'll put like a paper towel into there because sometimes the cinnamon gets so delicious, but it gets a little messy. Oh, I also put some wet wipes into my backpack as well. But sometimes you're eating something or your hands get sticky, you just need like a little wet wipe. Those individual wet wipes are really, really handy for that. Yeah, I like to just bring some food. Sometimes a little bit of like your favorite snack could just be that little nicety that kind of at least perks you up for like the 5 or 10 minutes you're eating that thing. I just really love these particular cupcakes at Trader Joe's. So I pack them, and sometimes I eat them at the airport if I have some time to kill, or sometimes I just eat them on the plane, nice and easy. Now, if you are going to bring food and drinks to the airport, just in case you need to bring them through TSA, Don't bring liquids. And do you know that dips and spreads and sauces count as liquids? You know, peanut butter counts as a liquid in the eyes of the TSA. So if you have like a whole ton of dips and spreads or whatever, the TSA, there's a chance they might stop you and be like, this is way too much peanut butter, sir. You can't bring this through security. Try not to bring alcohol. Most airlines don't allow you to bring on and consume alcohol in the cabin anyways. Don't bring ice, okay? Try not to bring things that smell, okay? Like, not everybody within the 10-foot radius needs to know that you're eating some like blue cheese, okay? Anything with fruits and vegetables, it's okay if you're staying within the continental US. If your flight is going to take you anywhere outside of continental US, fruits and vegetables tend to be a no, especially for international travel. A lot of countries don't allow you to bring any sort of fresh fruits and vegetables that you brought onto the plane. It needs to be consumed before the flight touches down, basically. And I think those are all the advice. I mean, there's only so much that we can do, unfortunately. I think it's really about, I'm going to sound like my therapist here, managing your expectations. Be as prepared as you can. Keep yourself detained. Check the flight status regularly. Know what your refund options are. If you're able to not fly and just travel on at a different time, look into that as well. Yeah, I hope we don't have a shutdown that goes on for very much longer. Once in a while, I'm keeping up on the news a little bit more than usual in terms of like politics news and government news more than usual, just because this shutdown is having very real effects on a lot of people's daily lives. And air travel is just one of them. There are a lot of people that are relying on food benefits, for example, and like that's even worse. But anyways, this is not a political podcast, but I do hope that for the whole country's sake, that this shutdown does not go on for too much longer. And then hopefully the next time I talk to you on this podcast, it will be about something a little happier, about probably some new Atlantis cruises that are going to go on sale pretty soon to the general public, possibly in the Mediterranean. Who can say? But until next time, bye y'all.